I think what first attracted me to music was actually playing around with technology. You know, when I was young, you know, I loved making things, building things, be it model spaceships or electronic circuits. So, you know, I came really from that background of loving playing around with gadgets, technology, and of those circuits, you know, I got into making oscillators, filters, the elements of early synthesizers. And in a way, I think I just went from playing around to sound to just sort of accidentally thinking, well, I must be composing now.
Anything at all? Your side of things?
You know, when I was younger, you know, I think inspiration didn't just come from music, but it came from books, from science fiction. And, you know, one key thing for me was Carl Sagan's TV series Cosmos. You know, I think a lot of people my age, you know, discovered their love of space and space exploration from that. And I think, you know, I came to that series because I was really excited by space exploration. But then in the background, I suddenly noticed the music, and it was a lot of pre-existing music, but the key thing was, you know, music by Vangelis. And also with Cosmos, though I didn't think about it at the time, I really liked how the music worked with the picture. So, you know, there were a lot of, you know, inspirations, but definitely that time, I guess it was sort of, you know, ambient, electronic, instrumental music. So you have people like Vangelis, Tangerine Dream, Brian Eno. Those were kind of the early influence, not necessarily influences, but the things I found interesting and made me wanting to explore music. I went to University College London to study astronomy and physics, which probably again is a bit of the influence of Cosmos in there. And you know, at the same time, I was very interested in filmmaking, but never really had the chance to explore it. I was at UCL, the student union had a film society, and you know, I went down to Film Soc, and like a lot of people there, getting a lot of the time interested in the technology and the equipment. And you know, we had quite a good setup. We had 16mm Araflex and Bolex cameras, you know, Steenbeck for editing, and it was down there that, you know, I found an outlet for the music I was writing at the time, you know, dark, moody, ambient music, which, had I thought about it, was actually film music, but just needing a film. So I started writing music for friends' short films. One of those was Chris Nolan. Following, I'm sure it's probably, you know, well documented now that we'd all left university at this point and most of us had day jobs. So Following was filmed on Saturdays over, I can't remember, 4 or 5 months. And you know, that took a great amount of focus from all of us. And you know, the team Chris put together were people who were prepared to basically give up every Saturday for 3 or 4 months. So because of the way Following was made with this extended production period, you know, I was involved early on, and you know, obviously primarily I did the music. I'm sound recordist on a few shoots. I was grip on a shoot or two. I'm an extra in one scene. Chris put together a team, so we had lighting, you know, camera, sound, and so forth. There was quite a lot of swapping between roles. With Following, like with all the work I've done with Chris, you know, I started working from the script, and this was particularly so because of the way Following was made over 6 months. But the core piece of the core theme actually came from a piece of music that predated the film, because, you know, as well as doing French short film, I was just writing music in general, and I'd given Chris a tape of various tracks, and then there's one that clicked with him. I think it might even be while he was finishing the script. And so this became the young man's theme, and which by extension informed the blonde's theme. So those two pieces of music were pre-existing.
And all of a sudden that person isn't part of the crowd anymore. They become an individual, just like that.
And then obviously Chris, you know, we tailored them to the film. The pre-existing piece of music changed quite a lot to become the main theme of Following. And then as well as I wanted to use this Chris had a couple of specific ideas he wanted. I remember he wanted a sort of a pulsing, ticking sound to just give that underlying sense of unease. And then we got into more specific things. Following has a non-linear elements, not as aggressively so as Memento, but we are jumping backwards and forwards in time. So, Chris had asked, for what I would call the bruised theme, when we see the young man's face bruised, to be quite different to the main theme, to help underlie that we were in a different state at this time. But the way the pre-existing piece changed to Following, to be honest, I can't remember. I know the original piece had guitar on it, which isn't in Following. But also, it became a bit more stripped back, a bit sparse. But if you look at the music to Following, and it's interesting for me to revisit it after 25 years, in some ways it is quite sparse, quite basic. But I think it also fits the film. I mean, there were obviously budgetary constraints, because Following was basically made for no money. But, if you took something like Following and put a huge orchestral score on it, it just wouldn't be the right music for that kind of film. It's a very small, contained film, a small, because of the way we made Following, it is very small and very contained, uses very few locations. So I think having a sort of small, contained score, was the perfect balance for the picture. I almost prefer to leave the definitions of both film and music to the critics. In a way, I just worry about writing the music, and also I don't try to take on too many influences. If anything, I remember talking to another film composer once about this. In a lot of ways, I'd actually try to be influenced by non-film music or other things, rather than going, this is a noir film, therefore I should use a noir score. I like to almost approach the film cold, without any kind of history of the genre. But we're working with someone on multiple films. It's nice because you have a shorthand, which is useful. And like anything, when you're sort of both a friend and working together, it's sort of, I'm sure it has its benefits and its drawbacks. The one thing I will say about Chris, and I think it was even going back to Following, that's a slightly cheesy phrase, he knew what he was doing. Even then, he was very focused, had a proper plan and an annoyingly good attention to detail.
That is none of your business. I think you better find someone else to start telling you little stories.
Oh, come on, I was just...
Amongst everything else in Following, I am an extra, and I'm in the background of a restaurant scene between the blonde and the young man. I think all I remember about that was that the bar that was letting us film there, was only available on Sunday morning. So I think we all had to be there at 8 a.m. on Sunday morning, which is why it's quite a sparsely populated restaurant. So with Following, I wasn't always on set because, Saturday was the day for working on Following. So that was my work often involved being in my home studio writing. Because the film took so long to shoot, there would be edited scenes that I could be actually writing music to while we were still filming. To say where I first saw Following sort of almost blurs into history. I can't remember at what point we'd have done a cast and crew screening or something like that. So, after the film was finished, it started getting into film festivals. I think San Francisco was possibly its first success. I can't remember the first time I really saw Following as a finished film, but I do remember first time seeing it with an audience, which was in the Rotterdam Film Festival, where the film eventually won the Tiger Award. So, it was an achievement for this film made almost in our spare time. I mean, looking back on Following after 25 years, I mean, I'm very proud of the work. in all honesty, that there's things I would have done differently now, you know, technical things with the score, but it is the right score for the right film. And also, you know, we made a film without many expectations, and it absolutely exceeded them. You know, so for me, it was my first feature. You know, it kick-started me realising that, you know, I could do film scores. And what's lovely after all this time is, you know, I'm still good friends with a lot of the crew. I was actually speaking to one this morning. You know,